Lindsay and Andrew Gaze are basketball in Australia. Every modern basketball and everyone involved in the sport should be thankful to the Gaze family for where basketball is at right now.
They're not just icons of Australian basketball, they're both icons of Australian sport.
Do not throw it in short. Don't throw it, get the ball.
Father-son who played a sport together at the highest level, they are the family of basketball. It's an incredible story.
90-day three, Andrew Gaze on the drive, yeah!
Whenever you're talking sport and you talk about the Melbourne Tigers, it's the Gazes. They go together. Lindsay Gaze, Andrew Gaze, Melbourne Tigers.
Andrew Gaze is a humble champion. In terms of Australian basketball, the best there ever was.
Anticipation by Andrew.
And the guy's a superstar. Meet his dad and you see where he's come from.
Lindsay Gaze is often described as the godfather of Australian basketball. He was a pioneer, he was a worker. His contribution to the game should never be underestimated.
And the Tigers, for the first time in history, have won the NBL title. Look at the Gaze family, Lindsay and Andrew.
There was no bigger name in Australian sport in the 90s than the Gazes.
He wanted to spread the word. We want basketball to be great. We want to show Australia this is what we can do.
And making Australia a basketball force around the world.
They are certainly the largest name on the foundation stone of the sport in this country.
Lindsay Gaze and his brilliant son Andrew. What a phenomenal run.
There's no family that can hold a candle to the contribution made by the Gaze clan.
On three, number one. 1, 2, 3, number one.
What Lindsay Gaze means to me, it means so much. You know, I wouldn't still be in the country if it wasn't for Lindsay. You know, back in the days, it wasn't really professional, but they bring a player out for 2 years, get you a job. And we've had a relationship the whole time. Him and the family. Margaret's been like a mom to me, you know. When you see Andrew growing up, you know, it's like your little brother or something coming up, just following his progress.
To give me my first job in basketball, support me when I left Basketball Victoria to take greater roles and then to be a mentor, you know, through the early stages of my career, and amazing influence on me, you know, throughout my career.
His life mission, some people is, you know, to follow God or, you know, you want to be the Dalai Lama or something. Well, Lindsay wanted to be the basketball god, and he achieved that.
Lindsay Gaze means greatness to me. He's more than a coach. My dad passed away when I was young. He's that father figure.
I have, you know, I get teary. He's, you know, as he gets older and life progresses and you look back, he's definitely a family figure. I love that man. I care for that man. He's been great for basketball, but for me personally, you come over here, you don't have family. You know, your brother's not here, your mom and dad's not here, there's no one here. My guy that I could go to if I was upset or if I was hurting, I had Lindsay. I love the man.
Lindsay's one of the smartest people with the best advice I've ever had the pleasure to be friends with and involved with. And he was a father figure to me, and I love him.
Right. Life for me without the club would be nothing. Without Margaret and Lindsay. Their love and their support has been... I'll always love Andrew, Lindsay and Margaret and Janet. But when people love you, they take you into their home, there is nothing better. It's a true love. True love.
It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch because he treats everyone like they're his own kids. And it's funny, you know, because he's not an emotional guy. He'll show his love by his actions, not always his words. To see how impactful that can be on people is nice, and it's the way I want to be.
Good rest. I'm comfortable. My name is Lindsay Gaze, and I was born in Adelaide a long time ago. My eldest brother, he'd just started work, and a fellow, he convinced my brother Barry to play basketball, and we started playing. So the three Gaze boys, a couple of schoolmates, formed a team that played in South Yarra in a hall, I'm thinking about twice as big as this lounge room. You know, we started playing a competition at the showgrounds. It was like an ethnic war every week. The teams were representing Italy, Greece, Lithuania, Latvia, you name it, and all the migrant teams, and the fights every week. From there, Ken Watson recruited my second brother, Tony, and I to play with the representative team in the Victorian Championships. From there, I was selected in the Victorian state team, and so it progressed. When you talked about this with people who were unfamiliar with the sport, you'd often get the reaction they say, men play basketball as well. Oh, really? Oh. And it took a long, long time before we were able to convince the press to take interest. Margaret was, I met her in Adelaide when we were training for the 1960 Olympic Games.
The 1960 Rome Olympic team came to Adelaide, and the club that I was involved with at the time was the North Adelaide Basketball Club. And we used to put a few functions on, barbecues, or, you know, we go out to dinner or something, and we gelled. And then he said, how about coming over and seeing if you like Melbourne? So I came over.
I warned her that life with me wouldn't be all that spectacular, because when we were building the Albert Park Stadium, there was a hut that was used as a canteen. I converted that to a livable property. I was living there, and I was the general manager of the Victorian Association. My work hours were starting at about 8:30 in the morning, knocking off when games finished at 11 o'clock at night. She didn't seem to react too badly to that, which was a plus for me, but I felt like I did really need to warn her.
He put that straight out when he said, you know, you want to come over and live with Mum and I in the car park at the Albert Park Stadium. And I thought, oh, that sounds interesting, living in the car park. But he was very upfront and said, you know, this is my life. Everything I do is for the sport, whether it's playing, job-wise, training, coaching. And so I knew from the start that was what it is. And it was an interesting, very interesting place to live. And then when we married, they built the house between the two stadiums.
We were extending the stadium, and it was decided to build a little cottage next to the stadium for the general manager. And so we moved into there and raised a family.
Growing up in the Gaze household was interesting, but we lived at Albert Park. It wasn't just basketball stadiums. We had table tennis, squash, badminton, running, the lake right next door, so we sailed on the lake. You couldn't ask for a better upbringing in terms of sport.
I always said that Andrew had a sort of a privileged existence because he lived in the best playground in the world. They were all in his backyard. He had a go at most of them, but he preferred basketball.
Well, for me, when I was growing up in Albert Park, I've never known a day without basketball because of the environment that I was living in. During that period of time, that was the mecca of basketball in the entire country. The opportunities that I had for my personal development as an athlete were significantly influenced by this extraordinary environment which I grew up in.
Always outgoing, always enjoying himself, easy to look after.
Andrew's report card each year would read something like, did well, can be distracted in class.
When we were growing up in primary school, basketball wasn't the sport that it is now. It didn't have the profile. We were kind of a bit odd, maybe, and it was a minority sport.
Yeah, basketball was a fringe sport back in those days, no doubt about it. I mean, it was the traditional, cricket in summer and footy in winter.
We all wanted to play footy. So the basketball kids, get out of the way. We need to kick the footy or we need to play soccer. We're not playing basketball. Basketball's not for us.
Well, when I was growing up, we predominantly played football. I mean, I played football until under 17s. And then, basketball was seen as the sport you did in the off-season.
And I talked to my classmates about basketball and they weren't sure about that, bit of a sissy sport back then.
But you knew that the people who were into it they were probably more committed to their basketball than anybody else was to their chosen sport.
So I met Andrew at school, in secondary school I met Andrew at Albert Park High School. He was the big lanky kid that played basketball. I was a kid from Port Melbourne from the streets that played footy and just tried to bash everyone lunchtime and during recess. And Andrew was always the one there just shooting hoops over in the corner.
The first time I met the Gaze family was I met Andrew. I went down and ran into Andrew and I said, I'm Andrew. And I said, I'm Ray. And, and he said, welcome to the club. We started training, I think it was under 12s at that stage. And I used to stay at their house on the weekends.
The weekends and our routine, particularly with me and Ray and him coming in and being very much a part of our family, it wasn't just him. Half the team had saying, I want to stay, that's okay, I'll have a sleepover at Gaze's house because they knew it was something a little bit different to what they're normally accustomed to.
So the very first time that I actually saw Andrew and spent time with him was with my first game with the Melbourne Tigers in under 16s when I was told with my dad to go to the old Albert Park Stadium and to pick up a player and my uniform. And we picked up Andrew, and pretty much the entire time he spoke about his dad. And I didn't know Lindsay at this stage, and we became friends, and I'd spend most of the weekend living at the Gazes, and so it was amazing times, and I've been blessed to, call him my best friend. Well, it was an interesting phase when, with being young boys, once your mate starts to date your sister, your conversation changes a little bit because you can't be such a lad. But I don't know the exact detail, and I don't really want to know the exact detail, but they got together and they formed a great union and have 4 fantastic kids because of that.
I don't think we told him, I just think he knew. I was hanging around a lot more and I was going out when they were going to clubs and he just sort of thought something's going on here. So Nigel wasn't too impressed that his little sister was going out with his best friend, but I think, he saw that we were the real deal, so he had to accept it.
We actually met through Nigel, my brother, when I was about 12. I used to go watch Nigel play basketball and Andrew was his teammate then, but I just thought he was this tall, lanky kid and didn't really think of him much then. But
bit dorky?
Yeah, a little bit dorky. But then Nigel would come home and say how Andrew was such a nice guy. I thought, he's quite nice. So in '84, we had this big bonfire party at my parents' place and that's when I made my move.
You made your move?
Yeah.
What did he do?
He couldn't resist, could you?
Well, my recollection was she was falling in love with me and was pursuing me perhaps more so than I was pursuing her because, when it's one of your best mate's sisters, you got to be just a little bit more cautious. But no, it was encouraged. It was almost through Nigel and I guess his trust in me and the relationship that I had with him that he felt if my sister's going to be with anyone and if she's keen on you, I want to encourage that.
Well, I was wrapped. I was, because as an older brother to my sister, you want them to find someone who's, top-notch. and I think he's top notch, so it worked out just nice.
Smile, look at the camera. Isn't that nice? After a hard day of work, and have a look at that. Thanks, Melinda. They're fantastic.
Geez,
And this happens every day.
Only when you blokes are here. It's all acting. It's great acting, isn't it?
You know, it takes something. It's the same as I've watched my mum with Dad, and I watch it with Melinda and Andrew. You need to have a real good team manager or assistant coach in those types of relationships. And Dad and Andrew are both lucky in the women that they found to be their assistant coaches.
Our junior years, we never lost a basketball game. And Andrew was, Andrew was a phenomenal shooter at that age. He understood the game at a very young age. Didn't play a lot of defence, but that was Drewy. We were there to help. But yeah, look, Drewy was always going to be special because he loved the game.
He is able to make the most of the limitations that he might have had as a basketballer purely by obsession, passion, dedication, time. It was just constant.
He's learnt the game from his dad and the other coaches, the state coaches, but it was about between 12 to 14, I thought. He's dedicated and he should go on because he's got, the world at his feet with the 9 courts next door to train. Mum doesn't have to drive him anywhere.
Well, I never coached him as a junior. It wasn't until he was in the under-16 level that I became connected with his coaching. And Ken said to me, gave me a nudge, he said, I think we've got a good one here. And I said, yeah, let's, it was like a realisation that there was something special in this under-16-year-old kid.
So Lindsay's transition from playing to coaching, he'd actually been on the Australian team that went to the 1970 World Championships. And by 1972, he was the coach of the Australian team. So he had gone from player to coach within the space of 2 years. Ken Watson, who'd been the long-time Tigers coach, basically said to Lindsay, I think it's time for you to take over.
I can see maybe Andrew's trying a little bit, Mark's trying a bit. I see a little bit here and there. Like I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, about 2.5.
So Lindsay, and the Tigers over the years, they've recruited great players. But the 3 most significant people that Lindsay was able to get to Australia and to the Melbourne Tigers were Brian Goorjian, Al Westover and Bruce Palmer. I think 9 NBL championships between them as coaches. Goorjian 6. And Goorjian's clearly been the one that's outlasted everyone, still going with the Boomers. The fascinating thing about that is that in those days, recruiting overseas players was all word of mouth.
I had a friend who was coaching in the United States who wrote to me and said, there's a player here I think you might be interested in recruiting. I didn't need any further reference. I said, send him out. And it was Brian.
Lindsay picked me up at the airport and drove me, and we went to Albert Park. I'll never forget that I walked into Albert Park and Lindsay says, we'll play some 2-on-2. And Lindsay, like Andrew, looked older, young. I thought he was in his 60s or 50s. And I'm thinking, we're gonna play pickup. So we started playing 2-on-2. And I just got my clock clean and very, very quickly realized how special he was, and also the fact, on top of all this, carrying the responsibility of being the national coach.
Under the bucket goes, please.
So Brian came out and he said, I've got a mate back home in the States who I played with in high school. He'd be pretty keen to come to Australia. I said, bring him out. That was Bruce Palmer. Bruce came out and Bruce said, I've got a mate that played with me at college. He'd be pretty keen to come out. I said, bring him out. Because the thing was, at that time, we weren't paying the players. They were mostly getting jobs as teachers. We'd give them an old bomber's car and find somewhere for them to live. Played, they loved it. And Alan Westover was the 3rd player that we brought out at that time.
I was amazed to come out, and, you know, I'm playing for Lindsay, and he's the Olympics coach, you know, so that was pretty cool. Well, you know, I thought he was very articulate, you know, unlike a lot of American coaches. Very laid back, very easygoing. So, like, when you grow up in the States, it's always like sir or coach, and then here was Linz, you know, so right away you felt connected with him. He never wanted the players to be too stressed. It was like, you know, we get to the finals and you say, oh, there's a billion people in China that don't give a shit, you know?
When my dad first started coaching me for the first time in a team environment, it was one that I was reasonably comfortable with because I'd been around him as a youngster, even as a little ball boy or hanging around when I was really young. You get to understand his coaching style and coaching technique.
I was on the team playing when Andrew broke in. I think he might have been 16 years old or something. And we all knew how good Andrew was because he'd been training with us and the juniors. And back in those days at Albert Park on Friday afternoon, we had Friday ball where the imports would come down, play pickup. And Andrew was always at that. And you see, oh, this kid's going to be good.
Would play like you do at home, just 5-on-5 with no referees. And you call your own fouls and winner stays on the court. We're just balling. And Andrew could just ball. You know, he'd come in and just, wow, this kid's talented, this kid's good. And again, you know, his personality, the way he is with people, he was real popular at a real young age.
I think Andrew really was destined to become the first superstar of Australian basketball, and you wouldn't want a better person to hold that mantle for the sport here in Australia.
Andrew Gaze on the drive, yeah! Reverse layup!
In the early years, no matter how good Andrew was on the court, people still weren't happy. And Lindsay came in for a lot of criticism for not only selecting him, but for starting him in the team.
Andrew is an interesting one. He's always been the coach's son, and they've navigated that, or they used to navigate that brilliantly. I think that that motivation for Andrew playing for his dad is a key factor in him becoming so brilliant.
I remember the negativity at that time, the cries of nepotism and the relationship where a parent can successfully coach a child. It's very rare. I didn't know that at the time. To me, it was just normal. And I saw firsthand that Andrew was not treated any differently to anyone else on any team that, that he was under with Dad, because all of the boys on the team were sons to Dad. Andrew just was one of the other ones.
Yeah, I remember when Andrew was coming through, heard all the stories, that this was this gun young guy coming through. Yes, I heard the jealousy, and then I went down and watched him play. It was a no-brainer for him to be playing in that side. In fact, it would have been a travesty of justice if Andrew wasn't pushed through at an early stage. One would possibly say that it was quite prescient for the coach to actually look at his son and realise he has got the goods and not worry about the noise around him.
I said, observe the game and see if you can pick which one is my son. And if they hadn't known before, and I said, the reason being is that they are all my sons. So every player on the team was observed and treated as if they were my sons.
Once Andrew had got to that point, he was the first in the gym and the last to leave. There would never be any question about whether he was taking advantage of that to, favour any. You couldn't question, there'd be nobody that could question that. And having said that, there were some that did prior to his selection for the first Olympics. And it's nice for me to know that some of those people have since found Andrew and Dad and apologised.
It didn't affect me primarily because I got exposed to that at a very young age. When I first made the '84 Olympic team, and I averaged 29 points a game and was the leading Australian scorer in the NBL competition. Now that is absolutely no reason why you're a fait accompli to make the team. But what it was that there was something objectively measurable that you could justify a selection. Which was
water off a duck's back for me. I'd been around long enough not to worry about shit like that. Then when we got to LA, and he played in that tournament, There was never any doubt that he had justified his selection.
He would be talked about wherever he went. You know, for a guy that would average 40, he averaged 40.
One down to 46 points.
I think someone put a post up the other day. Is Andrew Gaze the best basketball? And the guy averaged 40 for the season. Hello.
He's one for three.
Well, I guess the first time I remember Andrew was taking part in the Olympic Games. And then, of course, when he went to Seton Hall.
Seton Hall, one of the most storied university basketball programs in the United States, based in New Jersey, picks up Andrew for the 1988-89 season. It was incredible.
It was huge at the time. I mean, for Andrew, it was that next step. Yeah, we knew that you could play in the NBL, but then to play college basketball and even be within touching distance of the NBA, that was to take it to a whole new level.
For Seton Hall at forward, a 6'7" junior from Melbourne, Australia, number 10, Andrew Gaze.
Because of my commitment to playing for the Australian team, I wasn't getting through my studies. I was studying at Footscray Institute of Technology. I was doing a Bachelor of Applied Science, and I'd missed a whole chunk of school. So it was the only reason why I decided to go to Seton Hall is this window of opportunity on the calendar opened up, and it was perfect to help me get my credits for school.
That was a big story here, because not many Australians had trailblazed over there.
For one of our guys to be picked by a college that could pick anyone in America, anyone from around the world, it was huge.
They brought that game back live into Australia. It was one of the first live games brought back from America into Australia, because Andrew Gaze was playing the NCAA championship with Seton Hall. That's the power he had, and that's the strength he brought to basketball.
Now with the shot clock running down, Gaze bangs in a three, his first field goal of the game, and it came in.
The irony of it all is that after I go to Seton Hall and we go through to the championship game and lose in overtime one of the more memorable games in NCAA history, because of the success we had, there was an investigation, and I can still remember getting phone calls from a journalist from the New York Times and thinking, gee, what's all this about? And they were questioning my eligibility, questioning whether I got paid and whether I was a professional athlete. And I was absolutely a rank amateur, never received a dime out of it. But yeah, it's unfortunately an opportunity that was taken out of my hands. I never went back for that second year.
Back when the Tigers started in the NBL, we were a basket case. Teams would come in and beat us by 30, and it was just, we're going in, we're going to play the Tigers, but it's another win.
And another dunk. Timeout light on from the Tigers. Coach Lindsay Gaze as soon as there's a break in play. Andrew Gaze shows his skills.
We struggled early on. We were trying to get into the NBL. It was difficult because you had to win at the SEABL level to then make the NBL.
You know, your man is willing. I don't want you helping out off anyone. Don't help out off anyone. Just stay with your man. On the break, I'm just going to go to him. Yeah, but even so, just stay with your man.
I had thought at that time I was going to retire, and I went home and came back, and I mean, I loved the Melbourne Tigers, so I came back and just trained, and ended up playing as the import.
Brian Gudgeon. Oh, yes. Three-pointer. Absolutely, and brilliant touch, this man, Gudgeon.
A very physical game back in those days. You know, you'd come out with broken teeth, you'd come out with broken arms, fingers, and it was just, it was football on a basketball court. It was physical, very tough. And in those days, our change rooms were, it was, the size of a bathroom.
Watching Gaze in his number 10 singlet for the Melbourne Tigers, you get some idea of the way he can dominate a game. Last season, he averaged 44 points plus in 20 games in the NBL in a side that finished last.
We played hard. Andrew was phenomenal, but there were a lot more losses than wins.
It was because they didn't spend any money. They didn't have any money to spend, and they were still purely an amateur team.
So these NBL teams would pay and get a higher level import that would, get that 20 rebounds, 20 points, and Melbourne didn't have that. And what it did show, no matter what the coaching is, no matter a guy like Andrew Gaze, you can't compete without it.
The turning point was when the likes of Rob Jolly and Peter Sheehan became involved with the Tigers board, and they assisted in developing a budget, and we started winning some games, and that was fantastic. And then the games that we won would bring more people to the games, and then all of a sudden momentum was gained.
In 1990, the Tigers make finals for the first time, and they're on a massive high. But literally days later, it sinks to the lowest of lows, and Andrew ends up in hospital.
So when Andrew had his deep vein thrombosis in 1990, he thought he was going to die.
He's holed up in hospital, his blood being thinned in an effort to dissolve a potentially deadly blood clot. The injury is a shocking blow for Gaze and his beloved Tigers. The team had just clawed into the NBL finals contention with 2 successive one-point wins. Therapy could now drag on for 6 months.
It was as devastating as it was big. Everyone's heart broke. We just saw the injustice of this, that Lindsay and Andrew had done so much for the game, and then to be struck down by some random affliction, thrombosis, for a basketball player. And for Andrew Gaze, the epitome of, fitness in his sport at that stage, at the peak of his powers, it really hit everybody. And, the initial prognosis wasn't great.
It was a scary time. We started warm-ups at practice, and I thought, geez, my arm's feeling a bit heavy. And my arm was blown up. Eventually, they come back with a diagnosis that I've got like a 25-centimetre clot in my vein. And for the next 2 days, it was bad news after bad news. I was genuinely fearful that I may not get out of this. They explain to you the consequences of what can happen because it's spread and it's broken off, and the pain when it was in the lungs, just trying to breathe and the coughing up and just seeing the blood coming out, that was the one that, it's frightening.
Whereas Dad would have told him, you'll be fine. It was touch and go for a little while about whether he was going to be able to play again.
It was a scary time, very scary. And I think, it was for quite a few years he was on medication.
I always remember growing up and my dad with all his wise wisdom that he would impart not just on me but our entire team. One of the things that has stuck in my head, which he explained to me when I was a real youngster, was that there are only 2 times in life when winning is important, and that is in surgery and war. And I think having lived that experience, it enabled me to better rationalise winning and disappointment and setbacks that every athlete ultimately will have. And what it did, it helped in my personality, it helped in my approach to the game, knowing that you just got to put a smile on your face because you don't know when this thing can end.
Penetration, dishes outside for a three-point shot from Andrew Gaze. Hand off to Andrew Gaze. The easy layup. 50 points for Andrew Gaze on this layup.
What I remember is, and this goes to him just being a hooper, the fact that he was able to come back and dominate. One of those games, he scored like 59 points against Illawarra, and just like you go from a life-threatening injury to being the best player in the league, that's crazy.
That's the end of the ball game here. The Tigers run out 28-point winners over the Illawarra Hawks, 186 to 158.
For him to come back, and many thought that he couldn't or wouldn't, and then come back and rewrite history was just, it's part of the tale.
He's robbed him it. Pat Reedy, Andrew Gaze with the steal, and the Tigers have won it by 2 points. Look at Andrew Gaze.
He came back from that thrombosis and wins MVP. He just, I don't know if you could say it was like he never left, but he just loves hoops.
I feel very honoured to have won the award. I think that when you look back on it, there could have been 5 to 10 players that probably, if they had won the award, would have deserved it just as much as what I have. I'd also like to thank my father, who has been just incredible for my development and also with the club.
In 1991, Andrew wins his first MVP, and he'd go on to win 6 more in a storied career. It certainly helped when his sidekick at the Tigers arrived. Leonard Copeland.
Just watch this shot, all right? Oh, beautiful.
You want to know how Leonard Copeland came to Australia? Leaving the NBA, I got cut with the Clippers, and my agent was like, look, let's just try to get a job somewhere overseas, let you play a year, come back here, and then maybe you'll connect on a team. And you got to remember, there was no internet back then, so no one knew anything about Australia. I get to Old Albert Park, and there's orange chairs and possum poo everywhere. Possum poo all over the chairs. And I'm thinking, what the hell have I gotten myself into?
Leonard is a fine player. He's only been with us 3 weeks. We got him late. He's been fitting in very well. He's a very good athlete. Once he learns all of our stuff, that he's going to be a good player.
The very first game of the season we had was to open the tennis centre, and it was played against the Canberra Cannons, and I wasn't there. I had to still finish my obligations with Italy, and I watched the tape of the game, and I see the very first play, Simno taps it.
Right away, Dave Simmons slaps it to Copeland. Leonard Copeland jams it for 2.
And he goes up and gets his elbows near the rims and stuffs the first basket ever at the tennis centre for NBL basketball. As Leonard Copeland slam dunk within literally a second and a half.
A great performance by yourself, because Andrew Gaze will be back next game. Do you think you're going to get 37 again with Andrew?
Maybe I won't need 37 because Andrew's a great player, and with Andrew on the other wing, this is going to help our team much more. First impressions. When I first met Andrew, I thought he was a coach, or assistant coach. His hair was grayer than his father's. Thinking, this guy can't be the player. Are you kidding me?
Copes and Drew had a love-hate relationship sometimes. Drew would get a few too many shots up early, and Coach was like, this guy here, can he pass to someone?
Every game we had a fight. We fought every day. That's why we're probably as close as we are today. Drew would say, Coach, you're shooting too much, pass the ball. I would say, Drew, play some defense.
He would claim that he helped me out by playing more defense than I do. And then to a large extent, that's true.
Hayes drives through, Copeland steals it away, and away goes Copeland, bang!
We're both really, really competitive, and I think we both understood that we needed to find ways to help each other out.
Gaze alley-oop to Copeland. Gaze alley-oop to Copeland!
We're brothers. We're brothers, and we look after each other how you would someone's part of your family.
It's like that combination, bringing Copes in and the group they had, it all kind of came together in that 92 season, and they were a really good team and got them to the grand final.
Hello everyone, I'm Stephen Quartermain and welcome to Flinders Park in Melbourne for Game 1 of the 1992 Grand Final Series of the NBL between the South East Melbourne Magic and the Melbourne Tigers. And what a game.
When I finished playing, I wanted to stay in the game. My closest friend got the head coaching job at Geelong, and I went with him as an assistant coach to Geelong. Absolute nightmare. And it went into disarray. So when it finished, Lindsay goes, do you want to coach? And I said, yes. And I said, I want a head coaching job. So Lindsay, I had, after what went on in Geelong, there was no opportunity for me. And Lindsay picked up the phone and called Ballarat. This guy will be good for you. Take him. That changed everything for me and was the start of and it was totally done off Lindsay's phone call, because there was no way I would have got the job up there without Lindsay picking up the phone and putting me there.
We want to be aware of the 30-second clock. We don't want to attack the basket until it's down to 10.
Coaching against Lindsay, it's really, I think about it all the time, because I think to be good, you have to have an edge to you. I mean, Lindsay was like a father figure, but I couldn't see him in that light and compete against him. So what's our identity? I went with, we're gonna get the best young kids. We're gonna be the men in black, and we're gonna put the glove on, and we're gonna be nasty.
Players being a little bit sparky out there, and the referees having to continually give them verbal warning.
You want to get an important point across, you got to be intense. If you look relaxed or cool, or you have a feeling that they're going to go out and portray that on the court, and you don't want that.
We were the top two, and distinctly different, completely different styles of play. it formed an edge to the relationship with Andrew, to the relationship with Lindsay. The events that went on over the course of that time, we stopped Melbourne from greatness. They stopped us from greatness.
Real quick.
In such a short space of time, it did become one hell of a rivalry. Every time they played, it was a sellout. Every time they played, something happened. And I have no doubt that the players enjoyed it too. They would have loved it.
We were both in the same city, and we're playing in the same venue. So if ever we played them, the 15,000 would be split down the middle. 7.5 yelling for us, 7.5 yelling for them.
The Southeast Melbourne Magic have walloped the Melbourne Tigers, really turned things around in game 2.
Copes and I arrived at the same time back, so I was coaching at Ballarat. I came down to be Lindsay's full-time assistant. Yeah, I remember that 92 series really well. And we had won the first game, and we were looking good, and they won the next 2, so that was heartbreaking.
Gaze for 3. And the Magic are champions for season 92. Now it's time to celebrate.
It was heartbreak for the Melbourne Tigers. One that we felt we were the underdogs in that series, but we felt we had an opportunity that we perhaps weren't able to make the most of it.
Whilst we were disappointed about losing, we are proud of our effort. We're in the lap of the guys that just weren't smiling on us in those last couple of minutes.
You know, I think that we go out of this game holding our heads up high. I thought we played hard, we played a decent game, and unfortunately it didn't go our way. You know, I think that we've got a good base that hopefully we can go that next step next year.
When you lose a championship one year, the next year, it gets you ready. It almost prepares you for the things you didn't do well or you need to do.
I think the pain and hurt for me, I mean, I cried for a week. You come back strong, you come back harder, and you train harder, and we bonded in 93.
1993 did go well for the Tigers, but it didn't begin well. The Tigers lost some games, and the media started to scrutinise Lindsay for the first time.
There was a lot of media talk about sacking Lindsay and, you know, that he's had his time, and they didn't come and ask us about it. They didn't get our opinion and say, hey, what's Lindsay like as a coach? Because we could have stopped the lies and all the fallacy right there.
Lindsay Gaze's time is up. Lindsay must go. Didn't bother Lindsay one iota. He was, nah, don't worry about it. People talk about me all the time. Well, Andrew, on the flip side, was in tears. This is crap. Why are they talking about my dad like that? It's unfair. My dad's done too much for basketball in this country.
We were upset, whether it was my dad or one of our teammates. One of the great things about the group we had is that we looked out for each other. We had each other's back, and we were, unlike it is today where you see those types of comments almost every minute on social media.
As a team, we went in the locker room, and to see Andrew that upset, it upset some other guys. We all had feelings. We all were friends with Andrew, and we didn't like it. And then you could almost see the difference in us coming to training. We were a bit more serious about it. We had to get it done. And we were going to do it for Lindsay because they're messing with our guy. The famous brawl at Knox was one that you cannot miss. If you ever get a chance to go back and pull this up, listen, Ray kept us in line. And we don't give Ray enough credit, but Ray, if you got out of line, Ray would let you know.
Last Saturday night's practice match was supposed to be a friendly exhibition game in suburban Knox. However, late in the third quarter, the Tigers' Ray Gordon and the Magic's Andrew Parkinson became entangled mid-court. The result was an ugly all-in brawl.
Ray Gordon got his nose in there with somebody. Him and Parkinson just hated each other. And Parkinson was smart because he'd flick Ray's ear while the referee wasn't looking.
It was a free throw situation. I just remember Ray standing next to Parky, and Ray just cold cocks him.
We lost in 92. They came out with their back-to-back T-shirts on. There were some comments made before the game, during the game. We weren't going to step backwards.
Today, NBL officials viewed 2 separate amateur videotapes of the incident and subsequently laid a series of charges. First to be booked, the Tigers' Ray Gordon for repeatedly striking the Magic's Andrew Parkinson.
When we rocked up to the tribunal, And Andrew Parkinson walks in and he's got just black eyes, swelling on the face.
Lindsay gave me the investor. Don't admit it, don't say anything.
The third charge involves the Magic's coach, Brian Goorjian, who has been booked for leaving the bench and aggressive behaviour.
I take off in a full sprint and I grab Ray and I go to pull him off. And the next thing I know, a big piece of meat grabs me and throws me like a rag doll.
Rob Sibley grabs Goorjian. Now, if someone's grabbing your coach, then that's when the bench is just cleared. T-shirts torn, blood everywhere, and the fans are sitting there like this.
The final charge is the most serious. The entire Magic team and its officials have been reported for leaving the bench.
It turned into, reports and just added to the rivalry.
They were openly embracing the Black Caps. They wanted to be the bad guys. And there was a feeling that we needed a bit more mongrel if we're going to take that next step. And certainly Mark Bradkey, with the talent as well as the mongrel, makes a profound difference.
Probably the best big man in the history of the NBL. I guess in a lot of ways it was the last piece in the puzzle, if you like, for the team.
But the standing ovation was mixed with sadness and controversy. The fans and the club were losing their star at a crucial time in the NBL season. Mark was turning his back on local ties to play for the Spanish club Murcia.
You have our respect, son. Good luck.
I decided I've been in Adelaide and playing there, and then I had an opportunity to go and play in Europe, so I went to Europe. And so when I was coming up towards Christmas, they said, "Oh, do you want to continue on?" And I said, yes. And then I thought about it and thought, maybe not. So then I was in discussions with Perth Wildcats and the Melbourne Tigers.
Good rebound from Mark Bradkey.
End up choosing the Tigers. So I come in fresh face. OK, let's see what we can do.
Oh, my, Bradkey. That was a powerful dunk.
It took a while for everyone to adjust to different roles and learning to play with each other. So Lindsay kept saying, well, the longer the season went, the better for us, and he is very correct about that.
Tigers have got the rebound. Copeland. Will they go for three? Copeland! He makes the shot! Unbelievable! You've witnessed the greatest comeback in NBL basketball just about of all time.
Gaze, 2-on-1 here. Will he give it to Copeland? He does. And
Gaze having it to Copeland.
Calm down there. Don't go and get the ball. Don't go and get it.
So we win it in 92, and we're coming back with a championship team in 93, Melbourne.
So game one of the semi-final series goes to the Melbourne Tigers.
We'd finish on top, they'd punch us out. We'd punch them out.
They had a great team. And, you know, they were hard-nosed, and Goorjian was grinding and want to beat you down, and we're sort of free-flowing, you know, smiling, enjoying ourselves as we're winning.
The Tigers are through to the grand final.
That was an amazing victory. We did that the right way in 2 games. We didn't give them a sniff, and we went in full of confidence against Perth.
Sell-out crowd, more than 15,000. And we're away in game one of the 1993 Grand Final Series, where we were away.
With that grand final, I remember, like it was yesterday, walking into the Rod Laver Arena and standing on the side of the court, looking around at the full house. There was attention from the media. The fans were there. It didn't have to be explained to them. They all knew what was going on. I thought to myself, yep, we've arrived.
Tigers going to the right of the screen. Gaze for three. Yes, sir.
We came out and we had a really good game. We ended up coming away with a relatively comfortable home win.
And that is the game. The Tigers have won game one of the Grand Final series.
We certainly as a collective understood if we didn't win game one in Melbourne, highly unlikely of winning 2 games in Perth when we've never ever won a game there before, probably unlikely that's going to happen.
The Perth club thought it was inevitable. We are destined to win. It's like they're the anointed people. We shall win.
To say Perth was not a friendly place to visiting teams would have been the understatement of the millennium. And that's fine, because that was the beauty of going to Perth. I mean, their fans were absolutely rabid.
The Perth Wildcats have won Game 2 of the Grand Final Series. We'll have a third and deciding game on Sunday afternoon.
The second game we lost, and it was like the Perth people saying, "Told you so," you know, of course.
And we had to turn up again on Sunday, which is no easy feat after you get beat, you're demoralised. You know, is this ever going to happen? Another loss for the boys. No one's ever won in Perth.
And John, I didn't think it was possible that the atmosphere is even bigger and better than Friday night.
It's more electric here this afternoon. 8,000 fans. It's certainly a sellout as you would expect, and the game's underway.
Game 3 in Perth, and I'm hearing it. Tigers suck. Go home. You're gonna lose. Da, 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 da. I'm hearing it.
They'd organised the balloons in the rafters for the celebrations. We saw those, and, you know, you don't celebrate until you win.
Gaze drives.
They had prepared for their victory. You're seeing as if it was like a fait accompli, combined with this highly emotionally charged home court. You know, the Tigers are not going to get this done.
Tigers ball. They've got to be careful with their passes, John. Tigers very sloppy in Game 2.
Yes, the Wildcats have missed very easy shots.
Copeland the steal. Race the steal back. Brilliant Ricky Grace. Copeland shoots over Grace. Oh, this is unbelievable from Copeland.
Lindsay Gaze being told by Robbie Barnett to sit down. I guess that's the first real expression of any sort of frustration I've seen out there from Lindsay Gaze for some time, but that's what's on the line out here.
They were tough. They were physically tough. They knew the game.
It was a battle, you know, it was great. You know, Ricky Grace was unstoppable. And you watch James Crawford, what he was doing, and Fisher was tough and strong, and Vlav was to beat everybody up and snarl, and Copes was on fire. It's nothing but net.
So a chance for Perth. They're only down by 6. Less than 30 left in the game. Huge screen set by the Wildcats. Fisher makes a 3.
We'd coughed up really a lead that we shouldn't have coughed up. You know, it's like the fickle hand of fate was working against us.
Misses it. A chance for Perth. They're 3 down.
The last shot that Andrew Gaze took.
Vlahoff got it back. Vlahoff. Will he be the man? He takes the 3. No, in and out.
All the people in the stands go up like this.
To see them already up in the air like, you know, that's game, and to see them all sit down was just a beautiful sight.
Goodness gracious me, folks.
I thought it was home. It did everything but go in the net.
I don't know if I've ever seen a ball go further in a basket and somehow pop out.
It's almost like the ball went in, hit the floor, and came back out. It's around and around and around.
They fouled me. I got the rebound and they fouled me. There was still a higher level of nervousness about this because everything was going their ways and we were treading water. We needed to finish that in regulation or we weren't winning that game.
Never been a more important foul shot for Andrew Gaze.
All credit to the man. All credit to the man. Too early to celebrate yet, but by gee, that makes the Wildcats' task all that much harder. Tigers bench ecstatic. Gaze with the pressure gone after making the first. Rolls out for the second. 3.3, we've got a reset over here.
This is not meant to be. Your mind does play some shocking games with you. You go, this is not meant to be. The hoop gods are saying we have to lose this one. But fortunately, the hoop gods smiled upon us and we got the win.
And the Tigers, for the first time in history, have won the NBL title.
Well, super effort from the Melbourne Tigers. Great scenes of jubilation.
Once that horn went, Robert Sibley's running, shaking his, throwing his hands up in the air, and Drew is hugging, and he's squeezing his dad, and his dad's turning blue.
I looked over and I looked at my dad, and that's when the emotions really started to kick in.
Look at the Gaze family. Lindsay and Andrew. Andrew just tears streaming down the face. Something they've wanted so badly for so long.
For me, knowing him and his personality, to go over there and to embrace and just wanted to express my gratitude. I can tell him thank you, all that, but sometimes actions are more important.
How many people get to experience a moment like that, father-son, in an elite sport, anywhere in the world?
If you look at it, Andrew's the emotional one. Lindsay looks like he's just had a ham sandwich and a coffee and he's ready to go. That sums up Andrew and Lindsay.
There's the coach and the star player relationship. When they happen to be father-son, there's something more to it. You know, the criticisms along the way. Was he looking after his son? Are they as good as they say? Why do they not win? All those things just build up, build up, build up. And all you can do is to keep doing the right thing and hope that one day the right thing goes your way.
Andrew Gaze, been 10 years you've been waiting to get one of these things around your neck. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's been a long road, and you know, you sort of reflect back on these times of the hard times, and every ounce of sweat, every training session, it's all worth it, because this is just a sensational feeling.
What makes that title more important is that, unlike it is today, and the reality of professional sports, we and he had to deal with more hardship than any other one has to deal with.
Head coach, Lindsay Gaze.
And to then go from the lowest of possible low to now weather through that, continue to have faith and build a program that now gets the ultimate reward, and reward for him for all the things that he was being able to do.
Lindsay, what can you say to the fans back home, because they're all listening?
Well, I think, first of all, we wanted this game to be a player's game. That they've done the work and they've put in the energy and they've made the commitment. But also, we wanted to make sure that we responded to the supporters back home. That they've been fantastic for us, and of course, without that support, we wouldn't have had the chance to be able to play here. And I'll be a bit rude here, and I'll say it's a bit like virginity. After the first, it gets easier from now on.
Oh, well, I wouldn't know anything about it. Would you like to say hello to your wife? I can't say much more. Your wife's there listening to this. You won't be happy about that comment.
Well, I don't think she's a virgin, because she's produced this for us. And when you think about the product of basketball, I mean, I think that's a fairly good achievement, I reckon.
Basketball had arrived in the 90s. It was no longer the game played in the tin sheds. It was in the big stadiums. You know, Friday night football wasn't a thing. Friday night basketball was a thing. So when the Tigers won the 1993 championship, the images from after that game certainly did establish Andrew as the #1 man in Australian basketball.
The Melbourne Tigers brand went from strength to strength. Our crowds, once again, were amazing. Coming to support basketball at Rod Laver Arena, mate, 15,000.
Those nights at Rod Laver, when you know, Gaze and the Tigers and the Melbourne rivalry and Perth and Geelong, and they were huge. Like, they were sellouts, and they were some of the great nights that sports fans had in Melbourne.
Tigers are gonna be #1, boy. You know they're gonna be #1.
My opportunity with the NBA came right out of the blue. We're talking 98, so I'm at that stage where the NBA opportunities usually pass you by, 32, 33 years of age. One of Greg Popovich's close friends was really close friends with my dad. He said Greg Popovich likes what you could bring to this team, with the team that they're putting together. They're looking for outside shooting, and thinks that you could be helpful. Early in the new year in '99, I was on a plane off over to the United States.
Wow, you know, this is amazing. Though, there's just this kind of like, really, we can do that from this country. We can go and play in the NBA. So there was that side of it as a path setter, and real open your eyes to say, wow, this is a world game for all of us if we get good enough.
Got in, played a handful of games that year. Wasn't on the active roster during the championship series. If you look up the section, most irrelevant players to win an NBA championship, my picture will certainly be there.
It's interesting because we talk about it, and he doesn't want to talk about it. I'm thinking, mate, you've won an NBA championship. Yeah, but I didn't play. Well, but you were there. But that goes back to his competitive nature. He was in the team. Not many people with an NBA championship, probably one of the first.
When he came home with that big ring, and I think his wife's got a pendant of the ring, he's showing it off, And I'm thinking, you big sucker, you sat on that bitch the whole time, but you got a nice ring, and I was so happy. I was really happy for him, I really was.
To be able to be around some of the legends of the game, to experience the NBA, to experience the championship, to be around Greg Popovich and the entire San Antonio Spurs organisation, it was an amazing experience and one that I was extremely grateful for.
So the biggest event to hit Australian shores in the last, maybe possibly ever, was the 2000 Sydney Olympics.
It was an occasion that involved the whole community, and the opening ceremony captured the imagination of the public, and it was a great experience watching the Australian team march by, and it was a huge success.
They faced some big decisions. Who's going to light the torch? Who's going to carry the flag? Icon, Kathy Freeman. Who's the other icon?
They're about to announce the flag bearer and other ceremonial activities that are going to take place in the opening ceremonies.
The Sydney Games was something that was an incredible privilege to be an Olympian and to go to one Olympics, but for me it was my 5th Olympic Games, and I remember there was surveys and polls in newspapers, and when I went to the flag bearer stuff, I remember seeing my name being the 5th Olympics, but not in my wildest dreams did I ever think that that I would be the one to be the flag bearer.
Australia's flag bearer for the 2000 Games and the team captain is Andrew Gaze.
For him to get that honour, I think it must absolutely sit for him as just about the highest accolade that could have been bestowed upon him.
Thank you, brother. Calm yourself. Yeah.
When we talk about pride, I had that in abundance when John Howard announced that Andrew was going to carry the flag, and I thought, where else in the world would, I call it a simple basketball athlete could hug the Prime Minister of the country and his wife in an emotional thank you.
And I do remember that. And Australians like spontaneity from their sportsmen, and it seemed a very natural thing for him to do. He had an engaging personality. Let me say, he sort of won me to basketball. I hadn't followed basketball very closely until the Olympics.
I'll certainly be carrying this flag for me dad. Thanks.
With the flag bearer. He's just got ready. Big day in the history of flag bearing.
This is what I have to wear, mate. This is what I have to wear because I am the FB, my man. Flag bearer.
When we eventually called to go over, mate, I had this little special thing around my neck that had FB on it as flag bearer, and no real great instructions.
So I walk around like that, and when it's Australia's turn, someone comes and gives me a tap. Young fella, up the Rex Hunt you go.
Maybe they could put a name tag on you as well.
You know how you hear those stories of in these emotional moments where people get this great strength? I had that flag and it was weightless.
And behaving like a 12-year-old kid, waving his flag with excitement, going to the crowd.
Eventually, in that excitement, I turn around, I look back, and mate, I reckon I'm 75 metres in front of everyone else. And I started to think, yeah, back it off a bit, big fella. It's not all about you. You know, this team game.
I mean, he's a dedicated Australian. He loves he's basketball, but he just loves participating in sport. And for somebody like that, the honour and experience of carrying the flag at this great moment would have been unbelievable for him. And the fact that he felt as he did meant that the right choice was made when he was asked to carry the flag.
He loved the green and gold and playing for Australia more than anything else.
I can tell you that from 8 years old, since I met him. And it was, he always talk about Australia, and that was his dream. And he had that little card next to his bed. And every night he went to bed, that was his dream, to play at the Olympics. He did that, I believe, on 5 occasions.
With the Melbourne Tigers, Andrew was the best player in the league, okay? When he played for Australia, though, he was Superman. He had the country on his back, and he proved that he was the man for the job.
Andrew Gaze joining in. Got time to measure the treble. He's
In 2005, I sort of knew it was coming to an end. I knew Lindsay was saying things like, you know, I think Lindsay said something like, Al can do the job or whatever. There were little talks like that. And Drewy, I remember laying at Sandringham, we were training, and we were both laying there stretching. And I had to roll over and I said, Drewy, you all right? And he's looking up at the sky. He sort of said, Coach, I'm done, man, I'm done.
I was ready to retire because I felt like, you don't want to cheat the game. The game had given me so much and had got so many rewards out of the game, and you never want to cheat your teammates. It was hard because the mind was willing. I love the game, and the body was saying, I can't keep doing this.
You look up.
Oh, I want to look at the steps. So because my peripheral vision's faded.
As much due to the administration of our club and the changes that we've made over the years into the more corporate administration of the club. So it was time for me.
It's harder for me to come to grips with Andrew not being there than me not being there, that's for sure.
Myself and my dad retiring at the same time, I mean, you'd have to ask him about that, but to me it was just coincidence.
There would be no conversation about, oh, let's do this together, it'll be a nice story, it'll be not in a fit.
No, it was never planned that way. No, it was just my time was up. And I tried to convince, because he still had playing days left in him. There's no, I'm gone. Oh, okay. So we both went together.
He looks nice and relaxed now, as does Andrew Gaze most of the time. What a dream start to his NBL coaching debut.
Andrew Gaze becomes coach of the Sydney Kings, yes. I remember him getting the phone call, and then he called me. Man, I'm struggling, Coach. I don't know if I should take this job, because what do you think? What do you think? I said, Drewy, I know straight away you're getting paid out the ass, so you probably should take the job. No, Coach, I'm not making a lot of money. Sure, Drewy, sure you're not making a lot of money. He goes, man, would you think about going up or what? Depends, you know. I said, is there any money left? I said, is there any money left?
Maybe side by side.
For me, it's the ultimate challenge, one that went beyond just the wins and losses.
Andrew Gaze thanks Jerome Randall for his efforts for the last time this season.
To go from that situation where, in that first year, going off a really low base, to eventually getting to a point where the team was highly competitive. Through it, I think it was also a learning experience for me, because I did it with the blessing of my family, but I did it without my family. My family wasn't there with me.
A great defence, then being able to push it out. It's shorter. Again, Andrew Gaze is fuming. He's out in the middle of the court. He's called for a timeout.
It was lonely because you don't have your family around you, but it's also lonely because of the strong sense of obligation I had felt, and perhaps I wasn't necessarily well equipped to deal with the emotional highs and the obligations and the pressure that I was putting myself under.
I haven't slept. Like I've been thinking about this all night, and just the absolute passion and how much he wanted the team to be better and whatever he could do to help make it better. And every day he turned up as a coach and he gave it everything.
I had just started uni. I was my first year at university, and I didn't really have anything tying me to Melbourne. So I actually presented it to him. I said to Mum and Dad, I said, I think I want to move up there and stay with him. I didn't want him to be alone. So, because it's hard work going up there, leaving your family and being alone.
I think it was good to have someone that you're going through the emotional roller coasters of the wins and losses, to have someone like Phoebe who very much look on the bright side, and she was there to help pick me up during those times when things weren't necessarily going as planned.
What was probably the most special for me in that time was just the things that him and I just got to do together. I really didn't like to see the stress that he put on himself doing that. You could see, like, when he would come home, he would just be in his head all day long. And you could see that it was something that was on his mind 24/7 the whole entire time that he was doing it.
I'd have conversations with him about him stressing out and why are you so worried, man? You're not gonna win every game. And it always come back to this. I'm doing it for my dad. He'd always say he's doing it for his dad. You know, the name Gaze, I'm not just coaching for Andrew Gaze, I'm coaching for the Gaze family, you know what I mean? And when you think about it, you go, he's got a point, and I see why he's under pressure so much.
He kept saying he was okay, but, you know, we could almost see a physical change in him because he was just so dedicated, and every waking minute he was thinking about how to get a win or do better.
Winning and losing is the beauty of the challenge, but keeping it in perspective and understanding what really is important in life is more important than any W or L.
Andrew's Olympic dreams were indelibly tied up with Dad's philosophy around the Olympic spirit.
When Lindsay first started, Australian basketball going to the Olympics was seen as a joke. For Lindsay, it was a passion, it was a religion, it was a vocation, and he dedicated everything to it.
I think there would definitely be part of Andrew's desire to continue for as long as he did to get that for Dad, because it was those pioneers that deserved that more than anybody.
Australia winning the bronze medal in Tokyo meant more to me in recognition of those that have come before me. My first thoughts when it happened was not just about the struggles that I had as a competitor trying to achieve that goal, but how others had provided the groundwork for this to eventually happen.
And to see Paddy and the boys, come on. Australia is so thrilled for you. I mean, it's going to be quite emotional tonight, Lise. This country loves you, mate.
It's a collective goal of the nation. It's a collective goal of the sport. We all have the right to rejoice in that. We all have the right to be proud of that.
First call, Australia, when we won that medal, Lindsay. We had a beautiful conversation for over an hour on the phone. You don't just put a group and win it. There's a process to this. It started with Lindsay, and they all have their hand on this, and it's passed on, and you're a part of it. It meant a lot to everybody of how Andrew was. It's maybe the biggest moment when the thing finished, because on all of this, to me, Australian basketball is the Gazes.
When you're building stadiums, you're building a sport, you're trying to generate it, and for me, I am so grateful that, and it is tough, but I'm incredibly grateful that before the game, I called up my dad.
I always knew the passion he had for Australian basketball and for his connections with the team. And like me, in some respects, come so close so many times at last, you know, and it was like, you know, a huge burden off your back to say, at last we have achieved the medal, albeit not the ultimate prize which we aim for.
I'm sure the memories went through of all those conversations on the kitchen table, all the frustrations of trying to raise money from governments and sponsors. That was as much about Australia winning, but that was as much about the Gazes seeing a dream come true and a life's work realised for somebody like Andrew, but particularly for Lindsay.
I think the Gaze family, if not single-handedly, but certainly flying the flag, helped develop what community basketball is all about in Australia. I think remembering that it's an American game that wasn't necessarily that popular here in the 70s and the popularity it gained through the 80s and 90s is without a doubt something that the Gaze family had a huge, huge hand in. The number of courts, the facilities, the amount of families and kids that are involved in this.
Lindsay was one of those guys where he was always working, always trying to get something for basketball, Victorian basketball. Now, it wasn't just about him with the Melbourne Tigers. It was him. He was a godfather of basketball. He was helping everyone. He wasn't just helping us.
One of Lindsay's greatest assets was his undying desire to make the game better. He wanted to spread the word. He was the preacher. He was going out into the new frontiers, trying to preach this game to convert people to say, hey, basketball's a great way to go.
Lindsay was understood from a very young age. Junior sport and grassroots was where it was at. Just loved helping kids and seeing kids have fun, being safe.
And just gave his time. Like, he was invested in Victorian basketball, but also he had done so much in the international stage as well as in the NBL.
There's over 1,100 indoor community courts in Victoria, which is simply amazing. And that's all because of Lindsay.
Even now, you know, we hear a stadium being built, he gets thrilled. Oh, that's great, that's fantastic, you know.
That's what he was all about. He just wanted to build more stadiums because he knew that without stadiums, we can't get the kids in there practicing and training. But I'm pretty sure that he did everything he did for the NBL team and the Tigers for no money. He was never about money.
Think about it today. Was there a coach going to coach a professional team and not get paid? You wouldn't find one, would you? You would not find one. So that's the contributions. It wasn't about the money. It was about him teaching.
Probably some of the things that people don't know is that Dad still runs the Melbourne Basketball Association to this day, that operates out of Melbourne Sports and Aquatic Centre on a Monday and Wednesday nights. He doesn't get paid to do that either. Never has been paid to do that either.
I've been an amateur at heart all my career. I've never received a cent from playing or coaching the game. That's not something that I am concerned with. It's just that I think I'm privileged to be involved in the game. I mean, many other people would probably pay to be in my position. Well, for the vast majority of times, it was of necessity because there was not enough money. So I never ever did anything like in basketball for the money. To me, I was virtually like an amateur all my life.
Ange Postecoglou, right now, is in the media for all that he's doing in soccer. For Lindsay's Hall of Fame inauguration, Ange sent a message reminding Dad of the fact that Ken and Lindsay used to go in a car that they would have bought from the auctions and drive around local South Melbourne, pick up kids whose parents could care less, and bring them to the old Albert Park Stadium so that they could play games. It's a perfect encapsulation of what those men did, and our sport would not be where it is today without that.
Thanks for my family, because without their support, I could never have ever had the opportunity to be considered for this phenomenal honour of being inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame.
The Gaze legacy is just, I just think they've had their stamp on Australian basketball from 1956 in the Olympics right through to now it's 2024. It's a phenomenal scope of basketball, from being a small sport in Australia to getting to win a bronze medal. It's just crazy. And they've had their kind of finger on the pulse that whole time.
Your priorities change during your life. And when I started in the administration, it felt like I was building something.
We at NBL want to continue to honour the Gaze family, both Lindsay and Andrew, in any which way we can, and one of those is to name some of our best awards after their family name. So we have a Lindsay Gaze Award, which is for the Coach of the Year, and our most prestigious award with the MVP is named after Andrew Gaze, or the Gazy. It's a small sign of respect to the family that I think began it all and continues through Andrew to give back to the game every day. I take my hat off to Lindsay and Andrew. I can appreciate the amount of work that it took and the passion and the journey that they would have gone on to create the sort of swell of support that this sport now enjoys.
The rewards were never the motivation. It was really the challenge, competing to get the sport recognised, so never motivated towards reward.
Hey, on three, number one! 1, 2, 3, number one!
It's pretty special to think that out of that Melbourne Tigers group, you know, that we had this awesome team. Now we've got some of the sons with Ben Simmons and Josh Giddey doing their things. That's the best thing about it. That's what Lindsay would love.
There you go, there you go. It probably wasn't until I became a parent and you look back on it and think, what an amazing privilege it is to be able to be competing at the highest level, sharing these very unique experiences with someone you love and care about as much, but with your parents.
Mace! Zone 2-3.
I was always around it from birth, watched it. It was always on the TV just growing up, even before I can remember. Still to this day, every weekend, every day, the basketball's on. And I think from then, I wanted to always be like the people I watched. And then as I kind of grew older, it was something I knew I wanted to take more seriously. I was never forced to do it. It was all off my own bat. But when Mum and Dad knew that I had a strong passion for it, they pushed me. And still to this day, I'm super passionate about it.
Good boy, Mace. 2-3, Jordan, zone.
26 points from Mason Gaze tonight.
To be coached by my dad is even more special than I could even explain. And the history of Grandpa coaching Dad, that impact that it has, it's even more special.
The goal that I had when I found out that my wife was pregnant for the first time, try to create an environment where they were able to find their basketball and dedicate myself to providing them with the resources. And by resources, I don't always mean money. I came from privilege, opportunity and environment, not through money. That is what I'm talking about with what I'm trying to do for them. Not something that you can buy, but something that you can strive for.
Carrying the Gaze name brings a lot of responsibility, but ultimately it's a lot of pride because there is so much good that's come from being a Gaze.
There was never a pressure to be a certain person. We were never allowed to think that we were better than the next person down the street. Everything that we want has to be earned and has to be worked for.
I'm super proud. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. We've all been raised in this household just to give back, and that's what they believe, their philosophy is always to give back and pay respect to what the sport did for them. When people come up to me talking about Dad, talking about Grandpa, again, I always listen because I know it has made such an impact on a lot of lives.
Oh, I don't know how to put that one into words. Yeah, I'm very proud. Growing up with Dad being who he is, it never really clicks. But becoming an adult and seeing how much he has contributed to the sport and what he's done with his life makes me want to somehow, even if it isn't basketball, to follow in those footsteps. I hold that with me every day and take that into my work as I grow up.
Andrew Gaze, three-point attempt.
The Melbourne Tigers have prevailed.
I've got no doubt that Andrew Gaze sits in the absolute pantheon of Australian sports people. I mean, if Don Bradman sits on his own, Gaze is on the next line with whoever you want to put in there.
The best player to ever play in the NBL is Andrew Gaze.
It's funny, people always ask me, like, what's it like having Andrew Gaze as your dad? And I've always been like, well, it's normal.
In primary school, I remember everyone coming up to us and coming up to me and being like, Gazy, like, your dad's such a legend. And I'd be like, what do you mean?
Like an older kid came up to me and was like, can you get your dad to sign my hat or something? And I thought it was just like, why would you? I don't want your dad's signature on my hat. Like, why would you want my dad's signature on your hat?
It probably didn't hit me until Dad was far into his retirement, just what an amazing player he was.
Trying to leave a basketball stadium and it taking hours to actually walk out without someone coming up to him, shaking his hand and trying to have a conversation with him.
And then it kind of clicked from there that not everyone's dad got approached in the street to have a photo or back then an autograph.
That was like, oh, okay, he's not just a small little basketball player that it's in the media every now and then. I don't want to say fame because I find it weird calling my dad famous, but I guess that's what he is to a lot of people.
Andrew in his prime, I think what Josh Giddey's doing, Andrew would have done.
I don't think Andrew's records will ever be touched. The years that he played, the 48-minute games, the emphasis on scoring that the Tigers have, yeah, I just don't see it.
What did he have? 22 years in the league. Was a pioneer in Europe. Had a couple of cups of coffee in the NBA. 5 Olympics. 7 NBL MVPs. 14 scoring titles. FIBA Hall of Fame member. The fact is, no one else has ever done that. Greatness is excellence over a long period of time, and that's what Andrew did.
Sometimes for me, I feel really embarrassed about the way in which I am honoured, the accolades that have been bestowed on me. You know, sometimes I put my head on the pillow and I feel like I'm cheating.
He's been fantastic as a basketball player through his whole career. I'm so proud of what he's achieved on and off the court. He's not arrogant, he's a very humble Guy. His love for me and his parents and his kids, I just admire everything about him.
He's a hero, and I know he's a hero to a lot of people, but he's just, I think he's more like my idol. Like, he's just everything I would want if I ever were to find a partner. It's everything I would want in a father for my children. He represents everything I would want for my life.
The way Dad puts his family first before anything else is something that I know I will aspire to instill in my growing family, and providing us with the unbelievable opportunities and privileges that he has afforded us. He is the best dad that anyone could ask for, as cliche that is. He is inspirational, and he's someone that I want to have similar values to and look up to and love dearly.
I don't really see him as strictly a father or a coach. We're the only 2 boys in this house, so he's like a brother to me. He's been my best friend since as long as I can remember. He's everything that I want to be, in not a basketball player, but also as a person, so he's everything to me. Grandpa is the godfather, as everyone calls him, the godfather of Australian basketball. Even now, I'm still learning about the impact he had.
He's like the rock for our family. He is wisdom, and he is guidance, and he is the foundation that has allowed all of us to be who we are today.
My passion for basketball, it's enabled me to expand my family beyond my immediate family and create lifelong friendships, caring, support and love that are lifetime.
As far as you guys are concerned, you've all made us proud, but my pride extends beyond to you guys who are doing most of the work. And I'm thinking about the others, because without you, we don't get anything.
Basketball became a lifestyle with lots of challenges.
Potentially deadly blood clot.
Lots of rewards.
The celebrations begin here for the Melbourne
I have always felt that team sports had more to offer than individual sports. And mainly because you get the chance to share, and so that's what basketball did for me.
This here, the pride and joy, Andrew's first trophy he ever won.